Welcome all. Today is Monday, March 22, and we're in work session with the Village Board, Village of Pleasantville. So first item on our list, discussion about crane placement, 70 Memorial Plaza.
Just thinking about that today.
Sure. So Robert Hughes, the village's building inspector, has joined us to talk us through what 70 Memorial is requesting and has planned.
Okay.
You want me to share my screen, Robert? Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, there we go.
Okay. So overall, we were informed that the steelwork will take about 18 weeks. There will be three crane positions. Number one, which is in the village lane lot.
It's here.
Yep. Two out on Memorial Plaza. And the third will be, which is not shown on this plan, will be on site in the center closest to Bedford Road, but on their property. That's going to be the largest of the three.
Here? Or?
Now, further down where it says in the green area, Cooley LLC, right in the middle to your right. Right, so it's actually in the design kind of as a U. That area, that's basically where the crane will be placed, the third and larger one.
How do they get it there?
That's the next question as far as the specifics on the size, where it will be put together, and how it will get into that area. But that's the third and largest crane that will swing around and get the majority of the building.
So are all three there for the whole 18 weeks?
No. So they broke it down due to logistics and cost of going this route. So crane position 1 and number 2 will be in there to start crane number 1, and then around April will be crane number 2. And they're there for about 6 days of usage. The cranes will be in that position probably a little bit longer because it's not 6 consecutive days. So let's start with crane position number 1. It'll be needed for 6 days total of delivering the crane onto the site for them to begin in that corner. My guess is that's probably a month's time frame, but it'll be 6 total days where it will be operational. The crane will stay in that area the entire time until it's no longer needed, and then will be repositioned to number 2 out on Memorial Plaza.
Okay. So the same crane is picked up and moved over here.
Correct. It's actually literally a drivable crane. It's similar, I would say, to like a fire department ladder. It's not, doesn't get erected. It's actually a drivable.
Okay.
Does it get driven? Does it get driven across the site, or is it going to get driven around the block?
It'll be driven around the block. It can ride on the streets and the park highways, not the parkways, but it can drive on the roadways. It's like a 18-wheeler in a sense.
Do you know if that will get driven in the middle of the night, or will it get driven during the day, which could be a problem, you know? So
crane 1 will stay, so there's no effect in that. It's crane 2 that's a little different. So ideally, it's going to be there, again, for 6 days of usage. It's not going to stay there all day. It'll be in that position during the day, weekdays, when it's needing to move materials. We've informed them that at the day's end, it should drive back around and probably be parked somewhere in the vicinity, either where crane 1 is or on Cooley Street, as opposed to their desire to be on Memorial Plaza in some of the parking spaces there.
Okay.
So it'll only be in crane position 2 during the time it's needed, very similar to when the concrete pump truck was taking up that street. So it'll only be during the work hours and only for the time it's operational of those 6 days. Outside of those 6 days, it will not be on Memorial Plaza and it will be relocated.
So just so I understand, it'll be 6 days during the day and then gone.
No weekends.
Yeah.
And it will only be there 6 days total of the time frame of that work from that position, which again will probably be a 4 weeks time frame, but 6 days out of that 4 weeks. Now, that's a movable time frame because the steel guys can't work in inclement weather, any heavy winds. It's a much more delicate construction phase than anything else on the site. So they're anticipating 6 days, but one day may be delayed and they figured they were going to be on this day. And if the weather gets bad, they're going to try to anticipate it in advance, but it's 6 days total, but not staying in crane position the whole time. And then we go to position 3, which is the crane that will get there for the majority of the time. They're still discussing and flushing out the details with the crane operator as far as the sign, because there's a cost factor into it. What size, time frame, how long to take there. And I said they have to tell us or request exactly the time frame and where they're going to erect this, because that's a logistics. As I was saying to Eric this morning, I happened to be in White Plains this weekend, and they were literally erecting a very large crane right in the roadway, right downtown, and they had police all over the place. I don't expect that to be the case here. That's for high rises there, but this will be fairly substantial. So we're waiting to get their information on the specifics of crane 3. That's why it's not listed here.
Okay. When crane 1 is here, is all the steel being delivered and unloaded here for crane 1?
Correct.
And at various points this has been closed. Will it be closed during this work?
During the day of the work operations, I would say yes. And we already have it closed off heading towards Manville after hours now. So through traffic doesn't come through because it's not like a legitimate street yet.
Understood.
But the steel will be stored in the lane lot where the material storage is now.
Okay. Isn't that, I annotated the X, but it turns out the X is not attached to the drawing.
Yeah, it would
I go back where I was.
guys. It would have been nice to have an up to date, relatively up to date drawing instead of the old drawing. I mean, there's an old drawing of the old to place the cranes, but that's okay.
Well, 1 and 2 are, I agree, but it wouldn't affect the plan. 3 will be different. We'll get that on the new building, so we know exactly where the location is.
Yeah.
You see 3. 1 and 2 right now. 3 is not on the table. It's just what will be coming. Right now, it's 1 and 2. 1, because the license agreement has to be changed because it's on the property. 2 will be a site operations permit, which we have gotten for every concrete delivery, material delivery, and pumping from Memorial Plaza. So that will be given as a permit independent where we get their insurances.
And as Robert mentioned, if the board's amenable, we have a resolution on tonight's board meeting which amends the license agreement to allow for. Right now, they can store soil and some other items. We expand that to include the crane in the license agreement.
Okay. I mean, everybody's fortunate. The developer as well as the village and the residents, that the demand for parking is so low and we're in a position to offer some logistic space.
And the chief is on, the police are here. I don't recall any significant issues when they've had the pump truck out on Memorial. They've done overall, I think, a pretty good job as a flagman. We had a couple instances here and there. We try to stay on top of them and make sure they're ensuring that traffic is flowing and they have the flagman and they're making sure cars can pass. We have been lucky because the traffic flow has been down from past years.
Yeah, no, I think it's safe to say that the impacts of those offloads and things have been relatively minor. There was some things we needed to clear up in the beginning, but I think now it's almost, I don't want to say it's seamless, but it happens. They handle their business very well when it comes to that.
And then Robert, I think just obviously crane 3 and then getting an understanding of where they intend to store the crane when it's going to and from position 2.
Yes. Yep. They're still in discussions with the crane operator, the company. They finally decided on the company, but now they're finalizing that third one and the logistics. And I basically informed them the other day crane number 2 kind of has to leave the area and go to an area that's not inconvenience the village. Can't be positioned in areas that would, commuters parking areas. It's not going to really work.
Okay. Sounds like, all things considered, a well thought out plan and trying to minimize the impact, recognizing it's a pretty big venture.
Well, this will be the biggest impact because it's the entire superstructure per se, the
Right.
steel framing.
And then what happens, Robert, once the steel is up and they start doing the facade and all? Do we end up with bridging here? How does that?
Yeah, so once they get the steel up and they start infilling it with the metal studs, when you start to do the brick, once you get above 1 story, that's the intent where the entire sidewalk would have a sidewalk canopy.
Mhm.
So mafia blocks would go away. You get the sidewalk canopy there so people can now walk underneath it like you see down the city, and then they're basically above that area.
Okay. All right.
They're currently doing a lot of the work. There's a lot of work going on and has been. You just don't see it because they're inside the garage now in the lower levels with fire sprinkler, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. So there's been a lot of work going on, and you might want to pop your head in there. Some very impressive work.
All right. Great. Well, we kind of.
And sorry, one last question. What do you think it's still 24 months from this point, or?
I'd like to say yes, but I only question it because of this developer. He's so involved and so on top of it. I don't think he's concerned with time, and I don't mean that he's disregarding the village time. He's trying to do things so well out there that I think that time frame is maybe not realistic. I don't think so. I think it's just, and I mean that you might see the majority of the building up, but the actual occupancy take long on that because he'll be fine tuning the inside. I just think the level of the interior finishes is going to take a while.
Okay.
What's happening with the building on Washington in terms of occupancy? Are there people there yet?
What-
or-
Mostly occupied.
Is it?
His one, he told me 3/4 occupied.
3/4? Okay.
Yeah.
And it seems like there are a lot of other projects going on downtown at the moment as well.
Well, we had three new businesses going.
Right.
There were substantial renovations in
Mhm,
addition to the bakery being taken over by a new owner.
mhm.
So I think the fish market will be operational within a week or two. They did a very nice job. The Route to Rise, the old Stokel, the liquor store, that's probably a couple months out. They're having a difficult time with Con Ed and gas.
What's that going to be?
Route to Rise, it's a plant-based takeout, pick up and takeout. You kind of like with about 6-7 seats inside, mostly for people to come and go. And we had the other one that opened up, the taco. They're opened up. They did a very nice job as well.
Yeah, they certainly did.
Starbucks will be doing a pretty major renovation.
Is
yeah.
Con Ed still severely limited on the gas hookups? Is that the issue?
Most people, when they're applying, are also filing for propane.
Hmm.
Will the gas hookups be an issue for 70 Memorial?
No, they went in very early on. We informed a few projects around the time when we first heard of it, so they got their application in. They're all good, but they're only going to have gas for the commercial space. Residentials are all electric.
Right. Well, and of course, even in better times, a lot of businesses have had trouble getting the actual approvals from Con Ed in a timely manner. So, all right. So any other questions for Robert? We've got this amended license agreement on for resolution tonight, right?
And that's, I believe, just for position number 1.
All right.
And did we get the update on Depew? I may have missed it while I was turning on the light here.
They're full steam ahead. You can see the site. It's getting, there's a pile of dirt there that they're sifting through that is part of the cleanup. They've excavated. They should be starting footings within a week or 2.
So is the process of remediation from what I presume is oil and gasoline, is that like sifting dirt? And I mean, what do you do exactly to remediate a brownfield site like that?
It also entails, basically you can cover. It depends on the level of what's actually found in it. There will be some shifted off. I really don't believe there's a lot at all on there. A lot of it was on blacktop down there.
Mhm.
It's all been taken off the site. But we've been informed out there as well that you can cover it properly through the, inspections, making sure you're doing it. Yeah, so it's not a lot. I think they overstated what the cleanup would have been during the planning review. It's to them, but I never thought there was a lot out there, and it clearly hasn't been.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
Next up, discussion about new police department patrol vehicle.
Good evening, everybody. So just to give you an update, as just a reminder where we stand on this, the board has spoken previously about the need for another vehicle to replace one of the vehicles that's currently in our patrol fleet. And that conversation then also rolled into a conversation about a fully electric vehicle, what our options might be. So some things, we've gotten some more information about that. And we actually, some new things just came online today that we just found out about, which are relatively interesting. So, so at this point, I think we discussed previously the need for the new patrol vehicle and the fact that the vehicle that we will replace currently is a high mileage vehicle and has many hours of idling time on there. The mechanic, Mike Granowski, spoke to that regarding to us as far as how many miles how many miles of life the car basically has on it because of all the idling. And it's I believe it's over 800,000 miles. It's considered, those aren't drivable miles. It's not on the odometer. It's combining the odometer miles and the idling. So we believe that vehicle, although it is currently operational, would serve a use better, and we would take the strain off the other patrol vehicles with a new one should something happen to that vehicle. So we would still be advocating for a new vehicle in this year's, I'll say this year's budget, but in this upcoming fiscal year. As far as the electric vehicle situation, so we've done some research. So the first, I know we've talked specifically about a Tesla. We've looked into those. As you probably know, Hartsdale did have one. They don't use that currently as a patrol vehicle. They use that as an administrative vehicle. We have not found a U.S.-made electric vehicle that is currently available for purchase that would feasibly be able to be used as a police car.
But was it Hartsdale or Hastings? Or do they both?
I'm sorry,
I know Hastings.
I said Hartsdale.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. So the Tesla would, for our use here, we would consider that an administrative vehicle, not necessarily a patrol vehicle. But I think that's a conversation,
So Chief Brutzner, do you have any, in your fleet of vehicles, do you have any vehicles that are being used for administrative uses that are patrol rated currently?
So yes, Jesse's new car, the car that we just purchased to replace the vehicle that Jesse has, that is a patrol rated, currently unmarked vehicle. So were we to buy an electric car, we could theoretically roll the brand Jesse's new vehicle right into the patrol fleet. We wouldn't need to buy another patrol car and be up to speed.
Thank you.
Do we want to have a conversation more on the details of of what we found as the with the vehicle and sort of costs and?
Yeah, let us know. Yeah, I think we should, yes.
Okay. So for a Tesla, we're looking at probably a retail price around $62,000, $63,000. We found that the outfitting for to put the lights, not even as a marked car, but just the lights, the radio, things like that, that was about $14,000 when Hastings did that. So those are the numbers on it. The battery life on those, they run for about 300 miles on a charge. There are two different types of chargers that are available. One is the sort of common use charger so the battery doesn't fully charge and it doesn't fully deplete, goes down to about 10%. But so from a fully depleted battery to a fully charged battery can take anywhere from 7 to 8 hours of charging time. Obviously, that's a concern for us because we don't always, although we wouldn't expect to be regularly running the vehicle down to depleted, using it for 300 miles before it's charged again. We do have situations where, whether it's special events, whether it's taking the vehicle for training, to off-site training locations, things like that, where to have the requirement to basically take the car out of service for hours at a clip. We figure we would expect we would probably recharge the battery on a typical basis about every 100 miles. That means the car is now fully charged for about 3 hours, is what we've come to find out. So there is definitely a challenge for the use of the vehicle when it comes to the amount of time we will need to charge the battery. Well, you can always unplug it; it doesn't have to charge all the way up.
I thought the supercharger gets it up to 80% in like 45 minutes.
So the superchargers, what we found in the discussion we've had with Tesla on the superchargers is, at this point now, the person we talked to at the dealership did not have the ability did not know if those were able to be purchased. What happens is communities or community members put in we'd like a Tesla supercharger in our community, and whatever algorithm they come up with to decide who gets what when, they end up putting those in for public use.
And am I correct that those are Tesla only chargers? It's a different plug?
Jesse?
I think that's the case.
I think they are.
It's a good question, Mayor. I think so. I mean, it's a specific Tesla charger. I don't know if it can
Right.
charge other types of electric vehicles.
I think that certainly in the past has been the hit on the issue that if you devoted a parking space to such a thing, it was just for Teslas.
One of the differences between a Tesla and your other vehicles in the fleet in terms of use with the 200-mile or so range is that, as you were just describing with the vehicle you're about to take out of service, you count idling miles in the in the consumption there. Teslas obviously are not going to consume anywhere near the amount of electricity when they're idling. So the two questions is, one, does that, change the sort of understanding that probably you can go a full week or so given the typical use, with that, would that change that calculus? And then the second question is, have you looked at what the break-even point in terms of the fuel savings will be for the Tesla versus your other vehicles?
Well, so the administrative vehicles don't idle nearly as much as the patrol vehicles do. So if we were expecting, like I said, I'm not particularly comfortable at this point putting a non-pursuit rated vehicle into our patrol fleet. And the Hastings example from their chief has been that when it was not sufficient as a patrol car.
They envisioned it might be and decided it wasn't? Was that the?
That was, yeah, it was explained to me that they put it in patrol for a couple of shifts. Now, I don't know if they bought it with the
Is it a 3 or a Y or something else?
That was a.
They had the Y.
Okay.
So they run longer shifts than we do. They do 12-hour shifts, but they weren't able to get through a full shift with the vehicle without having to charge it. So I'm assuming we could potentially get through a shift, but then that vehicle would then have to fully charge. So that vehicle would be out of service for the next shift as it did that. If there was an emergency and it was needed, we could unplug it and go. But realistically, you'd have to anticipate that we'd probably be using it just about every other shift.
So if it's an admin car that's assigned to one person, so like Jesse, if you swap your current vehicle for this car, would that mean it would just purely be for you, or would you be sharing it with other people?
It would just be for me.
So is there a supercharger between you and here?
There is, I haven't checked to see if there was. I don't, my thought was that it would just need to charge here, from home and back and charge it here every day. I can speak to also regarding the Y that they went with is a little more money than the 3. They just did it because they said it was roomier. But they were the first, I think, police agency in the country to end up with the Y as whether an admin or marked police car. But the 3 is a little more, I think, a little less expensive and still gets I think they say 353 miles to a full charge. He explained to me, I spoke to Hastings, a sergeant over there. He said that you can't let it get down below 10%. And you can only charge it to 90%. And the other factors to strongly consider are the cold. He said a lot of cold can affect the battery life up to 15%.
So if you were reimbursed, then is there a reason you wouldn't have a charger at home and just charge it overnight?
No, I guess that's a possibility.
Because that seems like it would take the problem away. I mean, is there ever a day when you travel even 70% of 353 miles?
No, I think
a conference.
it would be training or a conference or something like that, which is, not, it's not that common.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll have better options down the line for sure, but I really don't want to vote for another vehicle that's not electric. I feel like it's a little village. We should start to move over, and hopefully while we're doing that with the administrative vehicles, some patrol-ready solutions will come along.
So I think all that makes sense. I just wonder if the vehicle costs lights and all 75,000. Is that what you said, Chief?
63 and 15. So yeah, you're in that ballpark.
A hybrid would be what? Lights and all in the 40s?
The marked hybrid that we're currently getting delivery on, I think was 53.
Okay, so let's just say it's a give or take $20,000 upcharge to get the all electric, and then the question is, would the fuel savings pay that back? Which isn't to say it wouldn't be worth a stake in the ground of trying to head in this direction. Do we know whether there's any aspect of the maintenance of these things that could be done by our garage, or does maintenance come along with it as it does for fancy Teslas?
So they have basically in our dealings with Tesla so far, they don't really care if they're selling to a municipality or that they're selling to a private citizen. There's no discount, there's no changes or anything like that. So we would end up purchasing the vehicle for the retail price, which would then include any sort of packages or maintenance that would be included on that.
Right.
Now the other thing, and this literally just came in this afternoon. So John Liswan had been doing some talking to our getting some of this information from TCD, who we buy our vehicles from and who outfit them. The current, the new Mustang Mach-E, which is coming out, which is a fully electric Ford vehicle. They labeled it as a Mustang, but it really looks much more like a Tesla. It does not harken back to the classic Mustang thing. It is their electric vehicle. That apparently is under Westchester County contract. We have not seen the terms of that. He just notified us of this literally at 4:00 this afternoon. But
is that actually out now, or is it?
I had a friend drive it this weekend, and it's around the same price. It's around 60. It's comparable with the Model Y. It's also an SUV.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at that because then you're at least within the Ford family as well.
Yep.
You have a little bit more leverage.
Yeah, they're not. I think they were talking about more. They'll be ready to ship more as the year goes on, probably not be able to get it immediately, but potentially in the fall was sort of the impression that we got is when we could reasonably expect to be in the mix for something. Which isn't, that's not a terrible thing for us to potentially wait on this and to see sort of how that all shakes out and, sort of push this down the road. And then if something were to happen where we needed to make a quick decision, we could still pivot to that. But that vehicle, it is a Ford vehicle. It is under contract. Again, I don't know what the price, if they're going to be discounting prices for that, for the contract. I haven't seen the terms of it. But that's another option that is potentially on the horizon.
All right. So, I mean, the issue is what to include in the forthcoming budget, right?
Eric?
Well, we are intending for this to be a fund balance appropriation. So really, we can make that appropriation at any time. We could appropriate money now or around budget for the 75,000 if the Mustang and the Tesla are going to be comparably priced, and then make the detailed decision further down the road. But
okay, the major car makers are all talking about being entirely electric in the next between 5 and 15 years, depending on who you talk to, right?
Yeah, I'm pushing for this. I realize it will end up being a bit more expensive this time, but I think if you get one into the fleet, you see what your use experience is, you figure out whether you can lift it, for instance, like as the curb goes away if you've got an extra 3 inches underneath it. Understand some of those issues, and we'll see what the real life experience is, then it'll be an easier discussion to have down the road when we actually are talking about patrol vehicles.
All right. So the sum total of that is, I think, general enthusiasm for trying to get an electric vehicle in the fleet, but withhold the decision until we see what happens with Ford. Is that kind of where we are?
I mean, I'm comfortable with that. If we want to push this off a few months, like I said,
Ford info is going to be known pretty soon, it sounds like.
I mean, my understanding is that's a contract has already been prepared by Westchester County.
Jesse, you'll have the coolest car in the county.
Great. Thank you.
Where's Jesse? Oh, he's at the Acme in Cortland, plugged in. All right. Thank you for that.
So hold on. I just want to say to Eric, this is my last meeting, or maybe my next meeting. I don't know. But Eric, thank you for a terrific job, Chief, and Jesse for a terrific job as a higher up in the police department, and also John. Tell him also a terrific job, really, and everybody, but really you did a nice job for me anyway.
Thank you. It's I've been lucky enough to know you and Katie a little bit and to work with you both, and you've always been terrific to work with, and the time that you've spent on this board has been really you've done some really great things, and your perspective and your opinions and your support have really been welcome. So thank you for your time.
So he's resisting making departing remarks at the organization night, but I feel cautiously confident that we're going to make that happen. So
that's fine.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for your service.
I want to tell you thank you, because really you truly meant a lot to me, and also John. I don't speak to him much at all, but let him know, please.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Joe. Next up, to BRS Dismissal Impacts to Academy Street.
Yes. So in the coming days, you saw the memo, Bedford Road School is going to reopen for full-time instruction. That won't include every student. There will still be the opportunity for students to be fully remote, but the cohort schedule whereby only half of the students who are in school will be there at a time will be ending. If you've been on Manville Road or in that area at school dismissal, you've noticed the backup of traffic in both directions, and that is based on the way that they dismiss the students to the parents, where parents drive up, kids are loaded, and then they drive off sort of in small groups of 8 to 10 cars at a time. The school is reverting back to the pre-cohort system of not allowing people to pick up to cars anymore. You'll have to be on foot to pick up your child at Bedford Road School. So now we have a situation where you're going to have everyone dismissing at the same time. And whereas prior to COVID, it was crowded on the sidewalks, but it wasn't inherently concerning. Now, in order to try to maintain social distance, we do have concerns about too many people on the sidewalks at the same time. So what I would ask for the board's indulgence on is to consider closing off that Academy Street section between Manville Road and Bedford Road from about 2:30 to about 3:15. That would give us the opportunity to allow a little bit more room for parents to pick up, to wait for the kids to be dismissed. There'll still be some controls on how the dismissals go. So there's going to be a lot of people in that area. The vehicular traffic, the only reason for vehicular traffic on this street at that time is local use, people who live actually on the street, and we have something prepared for that. We worked with the school to come up with a plan for that. And in addition, they do allow parking for handicap permit holders on Academy Street, but that's addressed as well. There's some of the pickup for handicap parking permit holders can be done down off of Manville Road in the circle down by the gym. Or people who are at that location before the road is closed can potentially sit, wait, receive the student that they're picking up. And then to exit that street or for local traffic, we've worked with the school to have them have staff there to sort of guide people up through the crowd. That's not a great way of saying it, but guide them up the street while the road is closed in a safe manner. Just expanding the road. We think there's going to be an adjustment period. Expanding the walkway with cones between the narrow benefit that we would get with the added risk, with the change in behaviors that we're asking people to do, we're just not confident that that's the best way forward. So at this point now, for those 45 minutes on the school days, we think the best way forward, it'll alleviate a lot of the traffic on Manville Road. It is, like I said, back to where it was pre-COVID, but with still the consideration of what we need to do to maintain, school personnel, parents, children's ability to social distance.
Are there going to be concerns about people who want to park? I mean, I know you're not supposed to drive up, but there are sometimes people who have a handicapped license or something like that. Is that going to be an issue if we close off Academy?
So we think there's not supposed to be anybody parking up there at all. There's not supposed to be any stopping up there. Not even just to pull over quick and grab my kid and then I'm going to go. That's not supposed to be allowed. It's a challenge, and it goes on. And excuse me, when we have an entire school year where things remain consistent, we have ways of sort of reminding people of what we're asking of them and what we're hoping that they do. We think that the limited number of parking for handicap permit holders should limit sort of the impact of that closure. We will still try to do what we have to do to facilitate the ability for people to have the convenience of that location. But it's if the road is not open, we can do it we think we can do that in a much safer manner. So, if someone shows up at 2:45 with a handicap sticker, would they be allowed to go up the road? We need to work that out, but we would probably focus them first towards the Manville Road, the Manville Road exit off of the gym before we had them head up Academy Street.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a good idea to me. I mean, I don't have kids at BRS anymore, but my recollection was that there was always a little bit of a safety concern with the children walking down that way anyway. And so if people are trying to socially distance on top, I think the pedestrian safety issue combined with the COVID issue, that seems
don't I recall that we were never supposed to park there anyway? So it wasn't really It was always you were going to park somewhere like a block away and walk up there. That's what I always did when we were.
Yeah, there's really, with the exception of like I said, those 3 handicap spots that are up at the top of the hill on Academy Street, there's really no reason for anybody to be on that street for the purpose of picking up kids at Bedford Road. No one is supposed to be stopping there. So were we to close the road off, people are going to have to adjust anyway, because they're back to exactly what you just said, that they have to park the car, get out, walk over to the school and pick up the kids. So that adjustment is going to be strong enough. We think that, especially now as people have gotten used to the cohort system, that there's still going to be a lot more traffic on that road as people readjust to the old way of picking up. So that's why we would look to close it.
How have people been made aware, or will they be made aware of the fact that they're not going to be able to drive up there anymore, and maybe they could, I don't know, walk to pick up their kids and just walk somewhere? If the
That's
school,
the way it used to be. So I think reverting to that probably won't be that surprising. I mean, it makes me happy to hear that. I had to pick up a kid from BRS the other day, and I saw all the pickup, and it saddened me, because I feel like the fact that, I know even though it's inconvenient for some people, the fact that you have to walk to pick up children, to me, that's one of those moments in Pleasantville that creates the community that we have, because people are forced to encounter each other. Right.
I mean, we would, I'm sure we would blast it out through our channels. The school, we obviously came up with this plan with the participation of the school. They would, and I don't want to speak for them, but I'm sure they'd be putting it out on their alerts, and letting, messaging very strongly to people. So they come back full, they start that process April 5th. After the week of spring break, they'll be back to BRS being, I don't want to say 100%, but no more cohorts. So if we had Wednesday and Thursday as 2 cohort days to introduce this to people, we think the weather's going to be good, which, helps these, when you try to modify behavior, we try to make it as pleasant as possible. But if we ran it, we start messaging it now by Wednesday and Thursday, people will just show up. And if they haven't gotten the message when the road's closed, then they'll quickly have to realize exactly what's going on. And we'll have a presence there. The school will have personnel there. It won't be from a lack of, from opportunities for people to know that happened. But if they were to roll up on Wednesday or on the 5th and they hadn't seen this before, the school is expecting that this new dismissal procedure is probably going to be more, I don't want to say it's going to take longer, because I think it's actually going to go faster, but they are expecting, I think in the past, probably a very few minutes after dismissal, all the kids were gone. I think they're probably expecting to have to change those expectations for the first few days.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good to me. I defer to you, knowing best. Anybody else have other thoughts?
No, it seems it's, Michael, do you have you're another parent with children?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me. Yeah, I think this will go fine. I think we are all very locked into communications from BRS on multiple times per day, some days. So I think it'll be great. And I say that as someone who comes from a distance from almost the edge of the boundary, and still going to be fine.
Shane, does the school have school board have any thoughts on this?
On Academy?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's best to leave it to the chief.
there you go.
Great. All right. Terrific.
All right. Sounds good.
Great. Thank you all
We're
very
done
much.
with you, Chief. Not forever, but just for the moment.
I appreciate the support as always. Thank you all.
Jesse, start watching YouTube videos on that Ford Mach-E.
Will do. Will do.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I haven't told Jesse yet, but if that's the one that comes across, maybe he won't. Maybe we'll have to find a charging station between here and Brewster. But we'll talk about that later.
Ah,
I don't know, now maybe we need stipulations of some kind. All right, summer camp, Mr. Trainer.
Well, he's trying
Hello,
to.
everyone.
Yeah, I just want to quickly mention Matt and his team worked on the informational flyer last week that went out, and we wanted to put this back on the agenda in case there were any follow-up items or questions or concerns. So,
Well, first of all, Matt, I want to commend you on your concept for how to do registration, because I can tell you that I've been watching social. The town just did their registration for their summer camp, and they did it on a first come, first served basis. And there was quite a lot of discontent over people being locked out after like 10 minutes. So I think the pure lottery is actually much fairer. And some of those parents are looking forward to being able to participate in our lottery as well.
Sure.
Um,
The process by which we're doing this, during that registration period for families to throw their hats in the ring, it's important that they understand there is no advantage to registering first, middle, last, towards the beginning of the registration period or towards the end. When all said and done, everyone has an equal shot. So
one thing that I thought we might do without at all compromising the fairness of the process that you've created is if you get to a point where you've determined who you believe is going to win the lottery and what their suggestions are, and we haven't awarded all the scholarships, but there are people who've indicated need who didn't win the lottery, then I at least would like to know, because I would take my kids out to let parents who have that financial need and presumably need to work to be in it. And I'm sure that if we let villagers know that there are other people who would voluntarily do that as well. Again, not requiring anybody to do anything, keeping the integrity of the process, but just letting them know that there's 5 people in financial need who would like to send their children who we have scholarship money for, but we can't accommodate because they got locked out of the lottery.
sure,
Is that cool?
absolutely.
Okay.
Have you gotten much feedback to your office, Matt, about all of this?
Directly from residents? No, nothing. It just the normal questioning about what is happening, and then instead of us sort of explaining it and they kind of get it lost in translation, we put them to the flyer. The flyer is pretty straightforward about the process, so just making sure that every resident that feels like they want to register really read it and get a good understanding, and if they do that, it's pretty cut and dry. But from a happiness or contentment perspective, no, we haven't really seen anything by way of feedback in that regard. No.
Okay. Any other summer camp questions? All right. While we have you and just a few minutes left, how's pool planning going?
It's fine. We have our 3 directors back, and for anybody watching now, if they know somebody that is a lifeguard or will be lifeguard certified and wants to work, they can get their applications to the Parks and Rec department. Hiring is ongoing. Oftentimes, we'll be doing it right up until the day before the season starts, and in some cases, even beyond. Applicants need to be 16 or above. So 16 above, lifeguard trained, give our office a call, and we'll help you out.
I had a quick question about for the kindergarten and first grade group, for the swimming day that they have. If you have swimmers that are not as strong swimmers or are not, fully, are they going to be put into different areas, or what's the plan for that?
Yeah, that'll be the case because they all have to be together. And this is commonplace when it comes to aquatics and pool practice. If you have most of them in that age group are going to be, I'm not going to say non-swimmers, but certainly shallow water is more friendly to that age
Right.
group. That's where you would typically put them. The rule is essentially you go towards the lower swimming ability. And again, it's not a situation as normal where we can kind of spread them out with staff and ratios. This is health department dictation right now due to COVID that they've got to stay in their pods. They got to stay together.
Okay.
All right.
For putting that all together, Matt.
Sure.
Is it?
And just while I have the board on too, in regards to the pool, and one thing that we have talked about, the plan at this point, we're pretty confident that we don't at this point need to do any AM or PM split type shifts. So
That's great.
our plan is to go ahead with the permitting process as normal. We're probably going to put together some sort of reservation system to a degree, so that people kind of don't take the trip and then realize that they can't get in. But that's something we're kind of discussing internally now that we've knocked camp out of the way. So
that would that be a function of capacity, like a limited number of people at one time?
Yeah, it's capacity plus space, right? That 6 feet of distance while people are actually on the premises. And again, the same people that are occupying the deck space are also the same people that are in the water, right? So you kind of just have to be aware of how many spots are being taken versus how many swimmers are in the pool. So we'll be mapping things out as we go along. But if we find the need to do some sort of reservation system, again, that's what we'll look into. But in regards to split days and things like that, that's not something we'll be looking at. It appears that most municipalities and even other private pools that went to that system last year are not doing the same thing this year. They found it kind of was inconvenient for many people, and that showed in their numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And will we have, roving cleaning going on?
Yeah, we will have roving cleaning. We're working a little bit with the town of Mount Pleasant. They had bought some equipment that actually makes solution. That's kind of a DOH approved
disinfecting solution.
Yeah, that's friendly enough when you put it in the backpack sprayer and you kind of put it there. So we're working with them a little bit to, instead of going to Costco or something and buying stuff that we're not 100% sure of, they've got this stuff that they know is acceptable, and they'll work with us on trade-offs. So I'll be talking to you about that in the next couple of days.
Sounds good.
And does the snack bar operation have to change?
He has, yes, but he has his own approval process through the Department of Health. So he's ready to go, and he's working on that aspect now. I've been in communication with him. He's all set and applying through.
And of course, he had the experience at some pools that were open last year.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's been around the block with that.
Yep.
All right.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So at
Future trustee Peppard.
Trustee elect, right? At risk of being overly optimistic about COVID, even last year without vaccines, in the middle of summer, rates of COVID transmission rates outdoors were very low, near zero, and with, let's say we have 70% of the population vaccinated by July 1st or something like that. Do you anticipate, and let's say the CDC or New York State relaxed regulations, do you anticipate an ability to pivot, I guess, especially the summer camp? Or are we going to kind of go forward with what we have? Because there's so much infrastructure that you've had to build up for that.
And that's it right there. With summer camp, they likely will not, just for the sake of staying consistent, at least for the full year. You know, they're issuing permits based on safety plans and site visits and all of that sort of stuff, as departments are handing them in. So it's a little bit of a wrinkle in the approval process. The staff scenario, it would be a little, I mean, conceptually it's possible, but it would probably be too late at that point. The other thing, just thinking out loud, let's say this happens midway through the summer, and you have a, certain number of group that didn't get in the lottery and kind of, wanted to get in for again, just hypothetically, if we were able to pivot around, that might get complicated as well. Remember, theoretically, what we're proposing is 50 kids per grade. 30 kids per grade group. So just the sheer volume at that point, the staff to camper ratio would be a bit difficult.
But there are some things that we might have wiggle room on, right? Like if say mask restrictions were lifted to some degree.
Yeah. So right.
And pool that, like, if social distancing were not 6 feet anymore or something like that.
Well, that would be the biggest plus, right? I mean, like telling camp kids, hey, you can, go ahead and despite who your friends are or aren't or what pod they're in. I mean, I'm just kind of visualizing what that looks like, right? From kids saying hello to each other from, halfway across the field. That's, it's kind of sad.
The thing is, we don't know when kids will be vaccinated. So that's the big X factor as well. But, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
So Matt, I think it was a great process that we just went through for camp. Given the fact that probably the most controversial decision we actually made last year had to do with the pool, it seems like it might be a good idea to go through a similar process for the pool.
What do you mean?
Having a meeting to explain what we're doing and ask for input before we finalize things.
We're opening the pool.
Well, we're opening the camp too.
Listen, of course, I'll abide by what the board would dictate for that. We're not encouraging any change in the registration system. We're not proposing a split schedule or any reduction in services offered up front. Obviously, there will be some modifications necessary in terms of space, and locker room use would probably be restricted, and things like that. But we're not anticipating necessarily a holdback of open slots.
That's great. I think it'll only be good news. But let's do a Q&A session so people have a chance, if they have any odd questions and it's something we didn't think of, that we have warning.
Works for me.
All right, so that probably makes sense a little farther down the road when we have a better understanding of what the issues will be. And I mean, one interesting thing will be to see how the registrations go, to see what kind of demand we have for pool passes, and if that demand approximates 2019, we'll be better able to gauge the question of how much limitation might be presented by the need to reserve spots. Is that true, Matt?
Yeah. In years where capacity has been to that point, or registration has been to that point, we haven't necessarily seen our pool get to a point where it's absolutely overflowing. People are aware of the limitations on deck space.
But with the requirement for social distancing,
correct.
On a 98-degree August weekend,
Correct, yeah.
We probably will need to turn some people away, right?
I would imagine so,
And
yes.
so the question about that is how we manage that, and as David was pointing out, how we message it, right?
Yeah, again, we've talked internally at the department about a registration system. Again, just to sort of, hey, hop on Community Pass if you know you and your family are planning on coming. Something along those lines. Wouldn't carry a fee, obviously. It's just something to kind of get in there. If we see that the weekends, I'm not worried about the weekdays. It's the weekends and the holidays that would be more of an issue. Even if we have to, maybe do that a couple weeks out in advance, that's something we can certainly work with.
Okay, but certainly we also have to message out the rules of the road, and perhaps it'll be evolving, but mask requirements outside the pool, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep. And Michael, to your point too, the pool is the easier animal of the two, right? If the county starts lifting those restrictions, with lifeguards, we still need the same amount. Chlorine's not affected, chemicals aren't affected. Really, it's just a matter of opening the doors. So that would be the way easier instance of the two.
I do think before we sell passes, we should have this conversation. Again, because there will be some changes from previous years. And
So people understand what they'd be getting, right?
yes, exactly.
Well, when do you think you'll start selling pool passes, Matt?
I would imagine in the beginning of next month at some point. Not too far off from when we start getting into the sorting out of the lottery of camp.
So in 2 or 3 weeks.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so let's keep the conversation going about when we should message out the opportunity for people to ask questions, but also message out what we think will be the constraints and how the world may be different if you buy a pass than what it was pre-COVID. So, all right, it's 8:03. We should probably move out of work session into a regular session if we're done. Any other questions for Matt? All right, thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Thanks, guys.
Matt.
Good night.